so we're in Wednesday's folder today. And we do have a discussion. It's very simple. And again, the reason I do the discussions is to make sure that y'all are really interacting with what we're doing and that you understand what we're doing, especially because I'm not there. Like, it's hard for us to have discussions with masks on, everyone's quiet. So it's just kind of the way I do things. In a second, I'll explain what it is. But first, we're going to go over what a plan is. For our project and why we plan. So the actual project and information is in the assignment itself. So in this assignment, slowly but surely, you will have the rubric like you all should have downloaded. You will have the written instructions and expectations, and you will have the slideshow that I'm going to show you right now. Okay, so it's all in here. Also in today's folder for Wednesday, you have the slides for today. So you'll also find the slideshow there. It's kind of redundant, but I try to put it places where you can have easy access to it. And so then you know what we're doing. So we will have this discussion today, and we are going to talk about planning out our cover design. So where this plan is done is on a new sheet of paper in your sketchbook. If you had myself or Miss Jones in 6th grade, you should remember that any big summative project we did, we planned it out. We figured out what we were going to do. We figured out how to draw it, what it was going to look like before we did our final work of art. Does anyone want to tell me why we would do that? Anyone want to answer that?
Why is it important to plan? You sometimes make mistakes in art. Get out of here, really? How does a plan help with mistakes? How does the plan help? What do you think? Does it help you problem solve a little bit so you can get all the kinks out before you start rolling into a final? That's one of the main intentions that Colson wants you to do that, is because you only have one cover.
Yep.
And so you don't want to just jump right on in, because if there is something you want to alter or change, it's so much easier to do in a plan first, and we can show you ways to transfer that right onto your folder.
And it's also, for me personally, I have ideas in my head. And sometimes once I start putting them on paper, I'm like, ooh, well, that's not going to work, or that doesn't follow requirements, or that's not, it's just, for me, it's like, gives me a chance to really get it out on paper and figure out what I'm doing. And if I know how to draw what I want to draw. And you do plans in lots of classes without even realizing it. You have a hypothesis in science, like you have to come up with an idea, or, what is the solution going to be? You have rough drafts in language arts. You have, in math, you do practice problems before you do a test. In sports, you practice as a team or as an individual, depending on what you're doing, before you go and actually perform. And same with music. So you're practicing and planning all the time. It's just done in a different way in art. So how this is going to work, this whole project is inspired by Okuda San Miguel. And he is a Brazilian artist, and he is considered a street artist or a graffiti artist. He also does a lot of sculptural work, but he does mostly, it's very vibrant and colorful, and it's geometric and organic shapes mixed together. So I'm just going to show you, this is one of his from 2016. It's like a combination of everything he did in 2016. And we'll kind of start to show you, if you saw here on the first slide, you can see that there is a pattern in the background and a main focal point that also has geometric or organic shapes. And that is our whole goal, is that you guys are going to choose a main focal point. Like, what do you want to be the foreground of your cover? Do you want it to be an animal? Do you want it to be a symbol? Do you want it to be something like these roses? You're going to choose what you want as like your main event. And you're going to draw that really large, and you're going to fill that with your choice of geometric or organic shapes. Most people chose the geometric and kind of like the triangle looking shapes. And then your background is going to contrast. So that means that you want your foreground, your focal point, to stand out from your background. You do not want it to mesh together. Okay, and then the background is completely different pattern or design using, again, geometric or organic shapes. I love both of these, obviously, that's why they're on here. And this will be done on your cover, like the final project, and all done with Sharpie work. Obviously, your plan needs to be drawn first. So let's look at Okuda San Miguel and see where this inspiration comes from.
Mira, mira qué bien. Yo sé que algo me quieres hacer. Mira, mira qué bien. Que me rodeas y yo a ti también. Quiero más, mucho más, dame más. Quiero más, mucho más, dame
So from his work, you can see that he travels all over the world and he works with different cultures, different countries, different, like, some are sculptures, some are large buildings, which, I don't know, his work is very inspiring to me. And I love these examples here to show you how, like, he has like an animal and it's full of the geometric shapes, or like the Statue of Liberty. And so the whole point for you is to choose your main focus. You could do the Statue of Liberty, you could do a squirrel, I don't really care, you can do whatever you want, but it's going to be your main focus. And this is all inspired by Okuda's work. Now, in order to plan it out, how this process works is you have to decide what is your focal point, what is your main event, what is your emphasis of your project, because that is going to be drawn large and in the center of your work. This particular student, it was a deer. This one's a hummingbird. This one's a dog. This one's a wave. This one's a tree. So you can see their main event. Okay, so you got to figure that out first. Now, you do not need a lot of details because you're literally going to be filling this silhouette or this shape in with those geometric or organic shapes. So you don't need to be like, well, I wanted to do a giraffe, but I can't draw all the details of a giraffe. You can draw an outline of a giraffe, or you could maybe borrow one of the plexiglass pieces and like trace the outline of a giraffe to help get you started. Not a problem. Okay, so you got to choose first. That gets drawn first. If you don't draw that first and you draw your background first, you don't have anywhere to put your main event. And then if you draw it right on the background, it's going to look weird and it won't contrast. It won't stand out. So choose what you want your main event, your emphasis to be. Draw that first large on your paper. I do not care what direction you want your sketchbook to go. Doesn't matter if you want it to go horizontal, even though you draw mostly vertical. I don't care. Okay, do you want it vertical? Do you want it horizontal? Doesn't matter. Once you figure out your main event, you need to figure out what is your background going to be. I'm looking for interesting, intricate patterns, intricate use of of those shapes, the organic and geometric shapes. Now, notice this plan turned out very different than the final. That's what happens. That's kind of the point. You start planning something out, you figure it out. Then when you start creating your final work of art, Many times artists change it up, or they change their colors, or they change their shapes. This particular student changed their animal. So he started to draw and he was like, ooh, this looks more like a lion to me than a wolf. So he changed it into a lion. Not a problem. I'm not going to look at your final turn in and be like, ooh, you don't get full credit because your plan is different than your final. That's not the point. The point is to figure it out and then to make adjustments. Here's another student's plan and her final. It's very similar, but you can see some of her color schemes she changed a little bit. You do not have to color your plan. Okay, this is not about making 2 final works of art. That's a waste of y'all's time. Okay, this is about figuring it out. What do you want it to look like? You can see how she has these 2 purples here, and she did not like these blues. So she ended up doing the purple and the gray on her actual jellyfish. Notice the contrast, how it pops. You can see her jellyfish and the bubbles very distinctly from her background. She has geometric shapes, she has organic shapes, she has a focal point, she has an obvious background and obvious contrast. It's beautiful work. Same with this student here. He did more geometric, but he also has some organic. Like this is, I don't know the name of that shape, but these are organic shapes. Organic shapes can have straight lines, just so you know, because some people think they have to be like, you know, swirly. They can have straight lines. How you will turn this week's work in. You all just downloaded this rubric or, you know, graphic organizer, and it tells you right here, Sharpie technique, Sharpie in action, longest line, your plan, and your final. You also have 2 reflection questions. They're not that hard. What are you most proud of that you created this week? And what are some areas you can improve? Okay, here's a student from last trimester's turned in. It's beautiful. And you can see exactly that she did it exactly right. You can even see how contrasting her background is from her foreground. So here are the expectations. Choose that focal point. What do you want it to be? It should be your main idea. Okay? It should stand out from in contrast from your background. Your background should be completely filled with geometric or organic or mix. I don't care. You will be using Sharpie only on your cover. That does not mean you can't start with a pencil. That's really intimidating to me to be like, oh, you know, now you only have to use Sharpie. You start with a pencil. You must show at least 2 Sharpie techniques: shading, blending, layering, texture, that craftsmanship piece, and then the creativity. How does yours stand out? How is yours different from everybody else's? Here are some examples from other students. Some people did stick with the black and white realm. I like this one where they contrast it with half and half. And then they stuck with the cool colors, warm colors, cool colors, warm colors. Super creative in my opinion. Here's some more that stand out. Now I'm going to show you one. This one, if you are somebody who is more realistic and you're like, I don't want, like, then put those geometric and organic patterns in the background and create that super realistic foreground. I'm okay with that if that's more your style. Here's some more. I want to get to this one. Creeps me out, but it's very well done. A lot of foxes. I've got a lot of fox fans. I love this, how the mountains contrast. There are some videos, like if you're like, okay, I don't know how to draw these patterns, look them up. Look up crazy patterns, geometric patterns, organic patterns. And then I have, let's see here. So the whole like how you earn an A thing, it's not like you completed your work, you get an A. You have to earn the A. That means you did all of the expectations asked of you, and you did it at the ability that you should be at as you personally. Like, I'm not going to take your stuff and compare it to somebody next to you. That's not how that works. Okay, the student hit all of the criteria. They had their plan. I used to plan a little differently. They had their plan, they have their final. It's beautifully done. They hit all the criteria. Look at this. Look at that Sharpie work with the stippling and then the shading in the background. Like, holy cow. I was going to show, do I not have this? Oh, I do. Okay. So this one here is a little different when I talk about contrasting. However, this student did like contrasting in a different way. They chose to contrast inside the diamonds, and then from far away, it kind of camouflages, but yet has that contrast. So that was very creative, and the way she drew her braid is beautiful. Here are some others. Now, when you start dropping in grade, it's because you're missing something, or like you didn't use a ruler. This focal point is so tiny, and then they tried to outline it with black. So you can tell this person did not start with a pencil, because if they would have started with a pencil, they could have erased their deer or kept outlining their deer with a pencil to make it large enough. So those are things if you're starting to question, like, how do I get less of a grade? It's because you're missing criteria of the assignment, or it's just like that craftsmanship piece isn't there. And then I have like less than a B and below. It's you're missing a ton of the expectations. And then sometimes it's just a 50% until you hit the expectations. So some people are just curious about that. So I wanted to bring that up. So today, you need to start with your plan. What are you going to do? How do you want to do it? This is done in your sketchbook, like I said, on a new sheet of paper. It is not a mini finished work of art. Some of you might do that anyways, and that's your choice. This is figuring out exactly what your focal point is, exactly how you're going to do your patterns, your designs, your shapes, how you're going to make it work. You could even do how the student did where at the below, where she even like gave herself like a little graph or like a little key, like color scheme. Who has questions?
Is it just the front cover, Miss Colston,
Yes.
when they're telling their very final work of art?
Yes, and the back cover, it can stay white, or you can do whatever your little heart desires as long as it's school appropriate, since you're at school. But the requirement for this is just the full front cover of your sketchbook.
Sounds good.
Does everybody feeling okay about this? Sometimes it's hard because, again, I'm not there and can't see your faces. Well, Miss Jones can't see them anyways.
Because there's such a nice blend from like the longest line activity into this transition that I think students are making those connections, validating what direction that they can go. Again, they're choosing their symbol, they're choosing their object, but you want it in the center. Am I correct?
Actually, I don't even care about that because I do want it to be the main event, the focal point. So if you're somebody who is like, I'm going diagonal, then you do you.
Okay.
Like, I do not care as long as it is the focal point. It's not itty bitty, but it's large. So however you want to do that. If you want something dropping down in below, I don't care.
Absolutely.
Like this is y'all's.
So start with the focal point first, then go into the background, and then you want the background to contrast with the focal point.
Yep. I'm not sure if this is helpful or if this, like having the expectations. What do you think? Maybe the side by side is more helpful right now?
I think so right now, especially thinking about the subject matter, because I think students will probably ponder on that for at least 10 to 15 minutes and get started.
Yeah, I mean, it can literally be your favorite brand symbol. It could be your favorite. You could do a big shoe. Like, it's pretty much, what are you interested in? What do you like? What's something that is appealing to you?
And you want the object to fill up as much of the page as possible? Like,
I think that's the best, but again, I'm super flexible. Like, surprise me. I like the creativity.
Good understanding of direction, though, which is good.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that emphasis piece.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, we'll give students the time to start investigating and thinking further. Again, you can find all of this amazing information in Wednesday's folder. And then do not forget to download that rubric so you have exactly where you need to add everything you've been working on this week.
And make sure you're taking those good photographs. So if you need to go next door to Miss Jones's room with light and clear, so it's nice and easy.